Okay, let's start.
Yes, yeah, you can start.
Yeah. The two
Yeah.
most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why, says Mark Twain. Hare Krishna. I, Sia Naik, on behalf of ISKCON Panjim, would like to welcome you to the Journey of Self Discovery program, which promises to be a life changing, inspiring, and an empowering experience and helps resolve relationship conflicts on a soul level. This allows people of all faiths and traditions to benefit. To guide you, live in symbiosis with nature and life, we have with us His Grace Achyut Gopal Prabhuji. Prabhuji acquired his Bachelor of Engineering degree from Goa College of Engineering, after which he worked as a faculty in the Polytechnic College. After pursuing his profession, he decided to dedicate his life completely to the mission of spreading the message of Bhagavad Gita. In 2000, he joined ISKCON, and now for more than 2 decades, he has been involved in its various activities all over Goa. He is heading many projects which include Gopal Fund School, youth preaching, and counseling programs. Apart from his responsibilities, he is also a motivational speaker and an author. Recently, he has launched his book named Happiness Revolution Through Consciousness Evolution. I humbly appeal you all to learn the essence of life and Gita in these 6 sessions of this course. Quench your quest and enjoy this journey towards stability, wisdom, and bliss. Before we begin with, please ensure you have turned off the mic and video while the lecture is going on. Ask questions only after the lecture is over by using chat features. If you have any question and want to put it across vocally, then there's a raise hand option available. You can use this feature to ask questions. I now hand over the session to Achyut Gopal Das Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. All of you all can hear me? Am I audible? Okay. So welcome all of you all to this Journey of Self-Discovery course. At the outset, we are very grateful that you all have chosen 6 days of your life to spend time to understand this wisdom of Gita. Yeah, Hare Krishna. So welcome all of you all for the Journey of Self-Discovery course. So we are very happy that you all have chosen 6 precious days of yours to spend to understand this course. I'm sure that this course will benefit all of you all. So it's a big commitment to take 6 evenings off to spend time to understand this wisdom of Gita. So just like Sia mentioned, few protocols because we are doing this course online, right? So this is your first experience of this course online on this platform. So in case you all are not able to hear me at certain point, please mention in the chat, or if you all have any comments also, you all can mention in the chat there. So basically, we'll be doing this course, and during this course, if there is any questions that you all have that arises within you all can make a note of those questions. If you all have a notepad or your mobile, wherever you all can note these questions. So towards the end of every session, we'll be having a question answer session where we can try to answer all these questions. So even during the question answer session, either you all can type your question out in the chat box, or you all can you all can raise your hand. There is a raise hand button there, and Sharvani will unmute you all, and you all can ask your question. So this journey of self-discovery course is basically a course that is based on the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is a very important book for all of us. It has 18 chapters, 700 shlokas. It's a very universal book, a very important book. But many people don't understand or don't have the time to read Gita and understand Gita. Or for those people who pick up the Gita, they find Gita very difficult to understand. So in this course, it is designed in such a way that in 6 sessions, you all will get a very wonderful, brief understanding of what is Gita. So this course is also called a 6-day Gita course, in which there are 6 topics that which we will cover based on the Bhagavad Gita, which will help you all better appreciate this book. Even though we can't complete the entire Gita in 6 sessions, but we'll give you the essence. So these 6 themes are 6 themes that are picked up from the Gita so that we can better appreciate the wisdom of Gita. So day 1 will be today's session. We'll be doing search for happiness. Day 2, in tomorrow's session, we'll be doing does God exist? Is scripture the word of God? Day 3, we'll be doing one God or many gods. Day 4, who am I? The signs of the soul. Day 5, why do bad things happen to good people? And day 6, practical application of the Bhagavad Gita in our daily life. So basically these are the overview of what these 6 sessions are going to be. So each of this session is very important. So the way this course is built is one session builds on another. So it will be very nice if you all can participate in all these sessions. I know this online platform is not a very conducive platform for a program like this. It will be very appreciable if you could have a physical program. So the experience might not be exactly the same. There are a lot of hurdles, So the online thing is new to all of you all. It's new to us also, but we'll try our best. So all of you all, please make it a priority to come for all these programs, for all the sessions. That's the best. If you all don't skip any session, you all will get the best experience of it, because one session builds on the another. And even in each topic, there are subtopics that are made. So it's very important that you all pay attention to each part of it. Another important thing, you all need not write down every detail that is spoken in the class, because we are recording this class and this recording will be shared with you all. We can share this recording with all of you all. So this video and the presentation, everything will be available to you all. Plus we will be giving you all the notes also of this, the concise notes of this. So it's not so much important that you all try to note down everything, but what is important is you all try to understand concepts, and as and when questions come, you all please make a note of those questions, so that in our question answer session we can try to answer all of them. So with this, we will begin today's session. But before we begin, let us offer a small prayer. So we will offer this prayer so that what we discuss in these sessions, these 6 days, we can actually understand it intellectually. More than that, we can realize it within our hearts and actually make gain the maximum benefit of these 6 sessions that we are doing. So I'll offer a small prayer. So all of you all can close your eyes and pray to Krishna that what we discuss in these sessions can actually benefit all of us. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshcha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamsta Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामीति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So let us begin today's session. So today is day 1. We are going to discuss this topic called search for happiness. So this is a very, very important topic because in life we are all searching for happiness in some way or the other. So search for happiness is continuously on. Whatever we do in life, whether we go to a college, we go to a job, we go for a trip outside, we watch a movie, we go for a restaurant, whatever we are doing, we are searching for happiness. The Vedic scriptures explain this as Anandamayo Bhyasat, that every living entity, all living entities who are alive, they are all looking for this happiness. Everyone is searching for happiness in different ways. So now the question is, where is happiness? One time there was a king who wanted to find out where is happiness. So a sadhu came to meet this king, and the king asked the sadhu, can you tell me how to find happiness? What is the key to finding happiness? So the sadhu told the king that let us go to the garden together. So they went to the royal garden, and there were beautiful flowers in that garden. And the sadhu told the king that you try to catch one butterfly. There were many butterflies in the garden. So the king would go and try to catch one butterfly. As soon as he would go near the butterfly would fly away. And he would go running to the next bush to catch the butterfly, and the butterfly would fly away. And every time he got very near the butterfly, almost caught it, the butterfly would fly away. So the king got exhausted and he sat down under a tree. And lo and behold, the butterfly came and sat on the shoulder of the king. So the sadhu told him, this is happiness. Many times when we search for happiness, happiness deludes us. But when we just stop searching for happiness, happiness automatically comes to us. So this happiness has always been a mystery. So anyone who speaks about happiness or writes about happiness, everyone wants to read it because everyone inherently is searching for happiness. So in today's session, we are going to actually find out details about happiness, what are the various kinds of happiness, and how do we actually become happy? What is the ultimate solution that the Vedic scriptures, especially the Gita, gives us for becoming happy? So as I told you, before we get into certain concepts, there are certain basic things that we need to understand. Okay. What you all can see on the screen, you all can see students standing in line for getting admission in a college. So whenever we see students standing in line for getting admission, and when students are getting admission to a particular college, we will always see there are categories. What are the various categories for admission in a college? You have a general category, or you have a central government category, reserved category. You have various categories, right? So when you see these various categories, what does it mean? It means that two things. It means that all the students are applying for the same college. There is common factor. Everyone is applying for the same college. And the difference is that everyone, depending on their financial income or the profession of their parents, they are different categories. So there is commonality, there is a common point that everyone is trying to get into the same college. That's the common point. But the difference is depending on their economic status, or depending on their marks, their merit, there is categories also. So whenever we see categories, different categories of admission, reserved class, general class, right, central government quota, what does it mean? It means two things. There are common factor and there is differences. I'll give you another example. Just like if people are traveling on a flight, on a plane together, even in an airplane, in one airplane only, there are different categories of seats, isn't it? There is business class, there is economy class. So why is the difference based on? The difference is based on the amount the passengers pay. So if someone pays more, he gets business class. Someone pays less, he gets economy class. But what is the common factor? The common factor is that everyone is in the same plane and everyone is going to reach the same destination. So there is a common factor. Everyone is in the same plane. Everyone is going to the same destination. But the difference is, depending on how much amount you pay, you get different comforts in the plane. So similarly, so whenever we see categories, so when I say in an airplane, there is business class, economic class. It means two things. What it means there are certain common things, and second is there is certain differences. So similarly, the first discussion for today, if we have more than one category, what does it indicate? Differences and common things, correct? So similarly, how many categories of living beings do we have around us? So if you think about all the living beings around us, we can broadly categorize them into two categories: human beings and animals. So we will categorize human beings into one category, and all others, the animals, the birds, the insects, the reptiles, everything into the category of animals. So there are two types of living beings: humans and animals. So this is the first discussion that we're going to discuss. This is something that's very important that you all need to understand before we understand the topic of happiness. So if there are two categories of living beings, humans and animals, what does it mean? It means two things. It means that there are certain common things between humans and animals, and there is certain difference between humans and animals. So there is common factor and there is difference. So we will be studying what is the common factor between humans and animals, and we will be studying what is the difference between humans and animals. So what are the common factors? The common things between humans and animals. So many people might say many things. Someone might say that humans also breathe, animals also breathe, humans also think, animals also think. Both of us can speak, we can communicate. So there are a lot of common things, but broadly, they can be categorized into four categories. It's called eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Can all of you all see the slide? You all can see, right? Okay. Okay, take it. Yeah. Okay. So these are the four common things between humans and animals: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So the Mahabharata explains this: ahar nidra bhayamaitunam cha samanya etat pashubir naranam. So the Mahabharata explains ahar is eating, nidra is sleeping. Ahar nidra bhay. Bhay means fear. Because of fear we defending. And maitun means enjoyment or mating, sex life. So these are four things that are common between humans and animals. Right. So if you see any geography channel, whatever wildlife channels that you have, you will see that when they show you the life of any animal, say a polar bear or a tiger, they will show you 4 aspects of an animal: how the animal eats, how the animal sleeps, how the animal defends itself, and how it mates. These are 4 things that the animals do. So broadly, the scriptures explain that these are 4 things that is common between humans and animals. Animals also do this: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And humans also do this: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Just like uh, eating, for example. The animals may eat very crudely. The an animal like a tiger may just eat flesh just like that, or a monkey might just go in the fruit, climb the tree, and just pick it up and eat it. But we humans, we may eat it in a little more sophisticated way. Correct? Uh, we have our own 5-star restaurants, revolving restaurants, where the food is cooked very nicely, spiced very nicely, and we uh, experience a greater form of eating. But in essence, what is the purpose of eating? See, the taste, all the spicing that you do, the taste is only for the tongue, as long as the food is in the tongue. As soon as the food goes below the tongue, it really doesn't matter so much. What is important? What is the purpose of eating? To fill the belly and nourishment, isn't it? So ultimately, the animals also eat and they get nourished. And as humans, we also eat and we get nourished. So we spend so much time in eating, and how much amount of human energy goes in this eating. Now, hi-fi restaurants, people pay so much to have this eating experience. But in essence, if you see the experience that an animal gets with eating, that is the same essence we as human beings also get in eating. Absolutely the same experience, just that it may be a little more sophisticated. That's the first aspect, eating. The second is sleeping. Animals also sleep and humans also sleep. But once you go to sleep, where you sleep, does it really matter? Not so much, isn't it? Uh, Once you're fast asleep in the night, do you know whether you are in an AC room or in a 5-star hotel, or you're sleeping on the floor? It really doesn't matter so much. Once you're asleep, you are in a different world altogether, right? So once you go to sleep, it really doesn't matter who is comfortable, humans or animals. In fact, if you actually see the scenario, animals sleep more peacefully than humans. You will see dogs that sleep in a busy street with cars passing and horn and people shouting, but the dog is peacefully sleeping. But human beings, even in the most sophisticated room with ACs and everything, the softest bed, the costliest bed, still humans don't get sleep. So we may say that we have become much more advanced than the animals, but in one sense, the experience of sleeping is the same between humans and animals. In fact, animals sleep much more better. And how much of human energy goes in sleeping, right? You have so many pills that are discovered for sleeping, so many technology of beds that come for sleeping. But in essence, the experience of sleeping for the humans and animals is both the same. That is sleeping. The next is mating. I mean, this is like a big thing in human society. Mating, enjoyment, the tendency to enjoy. But it is the same experience that animals also have. Nothing great, nothing different. The feeling of being attracted to the opposite sex is also there in animals, right? The dogs also have this feeling, the cats also have these feelings, the mosquitoes also have these feelings, right? It's the same experience. The experience of union is almost the same. So we may hype it up in today's Bollywood, Hollywood culture, where this is so hyped up, right? The experience of mating, the experience of enjoyment, but in essence, it's absolutely the same. What humans go through and what animals go through. So this is the third point, mating. These are the three. We are seeing the common factors between humans and animals: eating, sleeping, mating, and finally defending. So on top, you see in the picture, two ladies fighting, and you see down two dogs fighting, defending. So ultimately, it's the same. So the dogs may use their hands and claws, and we may use words, or we may use, nations might use weapons or guns or whatever, but the experience of defending each other and the experience of fear is the same, absolutely the same. So these are the four common things between humans and animals: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Correct? So the scriptures explain ahara nidra bhayamaitunam cha samanya etat pashubir naranam. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. These are four things that are common between humans and animals. So we may say that as humans we eat better, we sleep better, we have newer ways of enjoyment, and this experience of sex pleasure and mating, and we have more powerful weapons for defending. But ultimately, it is all the same. The proclivity, the base tendency of eating, sleeping, mating, defending is the same as animals. So someone might say, if these are the common factors between humans and animals, and humans also we do these four things what the animals do: eating, sleeping, mating, defending, then what is the difference between us and the animals? So we all know inherently that we are better than animals, isn't it? So if someone calls us kutte, we feel bad, isn't it? Someone tells us you're a dog, we feel bad. Why? Or someone tells us donkey, gade, you feel bad. Because we know that we are not animals. We are greater than animals. As humans, we are more special than animals. So the question is, what is the difference between humans and animals? If eating, sleeping, mating, defending are the common things, animals also do it. How are we special? We all know that we are more special than animals. What is that makes humans more special than the animals? Think about it. So someone might say reasoning, right? We reason. As humans, we reason. Animals can't reason. Or someone may say questioning. We can question, animals can't question. Or someone may say thinking. Humans can think, animals can't think. Or someone may say logical intelligence. We can analyze, we can use our intelligence, animals can't. But actually, if you see, animals also can do these four things to some extent. Just like reasoning. Have you ever seen a cat that enters the house to steal milk or whatever? The cat exactly knows when the owner is not in the kitchen, and that time it enters. So they also have some amount of reasoning, correct? They also have some amount of love. Have you seen a cow searching for its calf when the calf is missing? You'll find the same love that a mother has for a human mother has for her child, the same love the cow also has for the calf. So they also have some amount of emotions, love, and logical intelligence. Thinking is also there in animals to some extent, isn't it? So it is said that a dog, when the dog suffers indigestion problem, you know what the dog does? The dog doesn't go to a doctor, to do some testing. What the dog does, the dog goes and eats grass. It exactly knows which grass to eat so that its digestion can be cured. So generally dogs don't eat grass, but when they suffer from indigestion or some digestion problem, they exactly know which grass to eat. So they also have logical intelligence. The building we were staying before, right now we stay in our ashram in Sharao in Chodan. Before that, we were staying in a house in Talegaon. So just below, there was this caretaker of that building. They had a dog. So this dog's name was Maya. So this dog got skin rashes all over the body. So what this dog would do, when the sun would come out, the dog would go and sleep exactly where the sun is, so that the sun rays can come and hit. Because somehow the dog intuitively knows that if sun rays falls on my body, all my rashes will disappear. So they also have certain amount of intelligence. So yes, as humans we have better reasoning, we can question more, we can think and we can analyze things, but humans also have this. This is not the main difference between humans and animals. So then what exactly is the difference between humans and animals that makes us more special? So four things. First is A. A is ability for higher inquiry. So this is the speciality of humans. As humans, we can make higher inquiries. We have the ability to make higher inquiries. What does higher inquiries mean? Just like all of you all have joined this course. Why? Because you all have certain inquiries, higher inquiries. You all want to know, who am I? Who is God? What is the purpose of life? Why is there suffering in this world? Why there is coronavirus? Right? And what is the solution to all these problems? Where is happiness? We all have these questions that arise within us. We all want to inquire about higher truths. So this is the difference between humans and animals. Animals can't ask these questions. You'll not find an animal coming and joining the journey of self-discovery course. No, right? You will not have animals come and ask, who am I? Why am I born here? Why am I suffering? No, animals just exist. But human beings can live. There is a difference between exist and live. Exist means you don't know what is the purpose of life. To live means to know what is the purpose of life. There is a very interesting story. We all know this story. This is a story from the life of Gautam Buddha. Before he became Buddha, he was a prince called Siddhartha. So when Siddhartha was born to his father, the astrologer told his father that this boy either will become a big king or he will become a great saint. So the father didn't want Siddhartha to be a great saint. So uh, the king saw that Siddhartha doesn't go out of his kingdom and he is not exposed to any problems. So he was kept within the kingdom, within the palace itself, and was given the best of facilities so that he doesn't become a saint and he doesn't see the problems of life. But one day, Siddhartha, along with the minister, got an opportunity to go out of the kingdom. So what did Siddhartha see? When he went out of the kingdom, he saw a person who is diseased, who is always coughing, right? And Siddhartha was wondering, why is this person so diseased and weak? Because in his life, he never saw anyone who was diseased. He was kept protected in the palace. So the minister told Siddhartha, this is a diseased person and everyone will go through disease in life at some time or the other. We are all experiencing disease right now, the fear of coronavirus everywhere. So Siddhartha said, I didn't know anything about this. So there's something called disease. So he went ahead and then he saw that there was an old man completely bent down. His back was completely bent, completely old and emaciated. So Siddhartha asked his minister, what species this is? What kind of guy this is? I've never seen anyone like this. So the minister told Siddhartha, this is old age. Everyone will go through old age in life. So, and when people go through old age, this is the amount of suffering that happens. The body stops to function, stops to cooperate. So Siddhartha was very pained to note this problem, old age. And then he went a little ahead and he saw that there were four people, carrying one guy with bamboos. Right? They were holding four sides of this bamboo bed, and there was one person who was tied to the bamboo bed. So Siddhartha asked him, why is that person sleeping on that bamboo bed? So the minister told him, he's permanently gone to sleep. He will not get up. So Siddhartha said, I also go to sleep, but I get up every day. What does it mean he will not get up? So the minister told him, this is death. So once someone dies, such a person will not get up again. And everyone in life will have to go through death. So when Siddhartha saw these things, he said, I want to find out answers to these problems. I want to solve all these problems. So Siddharth left his palace and went and sat under the Bodhi tree and became the enlightened one, Buddha. So this is the first quality of a human being. What is that? Ability for higher inquiry. We can ask bigger questions in life, existential questions in life. The second is bliss. What is bliss? Bliss means we can all experience higher levels of pleasure. So one level of pleasure is like the animals experience, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So there is pleasure in that also. But these are pleasure related to the body and senses. But there is higher pleasures also, pleasures of the mind, pleasures of the intelligence, intellectual pleasure, and the highest is spiritual pleasure. So as human beings, we all can experience higher and higher pleasures and ultimately the spiritual pleasure. Animals can only experience physical pleasure, the pleasure of the senses. But as human beings, we can experience higher pleasures. That is the second difference. The third difference is choice. Animals can't choose. Human beings can choose. If you keep grass and meat in front of a tiger, the tiger will choose meat only. If you keep grass and meat in front of a cow, the cow will choose grass only. But if you keep grass and meat in front of a human being can choose which to eat. So choice is there only in human form. Animals don't have choices to make. So that is why as human beings, we should access our choice muscle and we should make the right choices in life. So depending on what choice we make, our destiny will be created. So animals don't go through the cycle of karma because they don't have this ability to choose. Whereas as human beings, we can make the right choices in life. And that's why we are doing this course, Journey of Self-Discovery course, so that we can actually understand what are the right choices to make. And then finally, D stands for determination. So we can be determined to follow the right choice. Even though it's difficult, we can follow it with certain determination. Animals don't have this determination to do the right thing. They work on impetus. If something is good, if it feels good, they just do it. So this idea of just do it is not a formula for human beings. Human beings have to use their intelligence. They have to choose whether it is right or wrong. And then after they make the right choice, they should be able to access the determination to follow the right choice, even if it is difficult. So these are the four differences between humans and animals. A, ability for higher inquiry. B, we can access higher levels of bliss. C, we can make the right choices. And D, we can experience or we can access determination to follow the right choice. So someone might say, what if I don't follow these four things? I don't want to make higher inquiries. I don't want higher levels of bliss. I don't want to access my choice muscle. And I don't care for determination. Then what will happen? If we don't explore these four potentials, then we are simply well-dressed, sophisticated, polished, two-legged animals. There is no difference between humans and animals if we don't follow these four things. So the Mahabharata verse explains, Ahara nidra bhayamaitunamcha samanya etat pashubir narana dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hina pashubi samana. So it says, Ahara nidra bhayamaitunamcha, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, samanya etat pashubir naranam. These four things are common between humans and animals. But dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho. If the dharma means these four things, ability for higher inquiry, higher levels of bliss, to make the right choice and determination. If this thing is not there in a human being, then dharmena hina pashubi samana. Then humans are as good as animals. No difference. We may be wearing a coat and tie, just like you can see in the slide. Coat, tie, pant, shirt, animals. Sophisticated animals. Like Srila Prabhupada would say, animals run in 4 legs. Now we are running in 4 tires, 4-wheeler. But it is all the same if we don't access the potentials that human beings are actually meant for. So yes, as humans, we may have to eat, sleep, mate, and defend. But human life is not meant for doing only these four things. There is a higher purpose in human form of life. So, in fact, if humans don't access the higher potential, if humans become like animals, they don't even remain animals. They become worse than animals. And what is the proof? See the situation of the world today. Sleeping pills, threat, suicide, addiction, heartbreaks, coronavirus. I mean, all these things are not in animal society. All these problems are there in human society. Human beings, we are being locked down. We are going through quarantine and everything. Animals are not locked down. So who is suffering more badly? Humans or animals? So the point is, humans are suffering. Why? Because we are forgotten to be humans. We are acting like animals. So one time there was a scientist who went to meet farmers, and the scientist told these farmers who are illiterate, he told them that just see, humans have advanced so much in technology. We can fly like the bird in the sky. We can dive into the water like a fish. We can do everything. So we have become so great. So the farmers asked the scientists, yes, as humans, we can fly like the bird, we can swim like the fish, but when will humans behave like humans? We are imitating animals, we have forgotten to be humans. So human being means not just being born in a human body, but to actually access what the human being, this human form is meant for. So every species of life has a peculiar characteristic, isn't it? Like the body of an elephant, the body of an elephant can eat more. Kilos and kilos the elephant can eat, correct? Or like the body of a polar bear, it can hibernate for 6 months. 6 months it can sleep peacefully, it can, no problem. Or the body of a bird is meant to fly. Or the eagle, the speciality is from very far the eagle can see its food. Sharp eyes the eagle has. Or the dog has sharp smelling sense, correct? So all these animals have one's peculiar characteristic. So what is the speciality of humans? Human body is designed so that we can take to spiritual life. We are not meant to compete with an elephant in eating or flying like the bird. That's not human form is meant for. Human form is meant for taking to spiritual life nicely. Otherwise we will face all these problems. War, do you find war in animal society? There is no war in animal society. Do you find that animals have committed suicide? Does it come in paper anywhere that dog has committed suicide or an elephant has committed suicide? No, no such problem in animal society. Do you find that, okay, we eat kilos, some 1 kilo probably a day, but the elephant eats tons of food every day. Do you find in the paper saying that elephant has died out of starvation? No, doesn't happen in animal society. Do you find that a dog had to take sleeping pill to get cured of disease? No, you don't find all this. So all these problems, heartbreaks. Okay, do you find that one dog or one animal is coming and complaining, saying that heart is broken, dil toot gaya? That doesn't happen in human animal society. It all these problems come in human society only. Why? Because we have forgotten to be humans. We are behaving like animals. So one time there was a farmer who won a lottery, and what he got in the lottery, he won a brand new red color Ferrari, which costs crores of rupees. So that's like a big thing to get a Ferrari. So what the farmer did, the farmer came back to his farm. He came back to his farm and he put a plow behind the Ferrari and started to use the Ferrari to plow his field. What do you think happened? What happened was the Ferrari got spoiled, the field didn't get plowed, and the farmer got frustrated. Why? Because To plow the field, you need a tractor. What is Ferrari meant for? Ferrari is meant for going full speed on a highway, the proper road. It's not meant for the field. So every vehicle has a certain use. Tractor is meant for the field. JCB is meant for digging the ground. But a high-end car, a luxury car, is meant for a pleasure drive. Getting the point? So similarly, we all have different bodies. The Gita says, Yantra Rudani Mayaya. So our bodies are like a vehicle. Correct? So human body is one vehicle. Animal body is one vehicle. Animal body is like a truck. It's like a tractor. And human body is like a high-end Ferrari car. So animal body is meant for eating, sleeping, mating, defending. That is animal body. But human body is not meant for eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Human body is meant to take this highway of spiritual life and go back to the spiritual world. That is what human life is meant for. But with this human form, rare human costly form, we use it to eat, sleep, mate, defend. That means we are using this Ferrari car to plow the field. What will happen? The body will get destroyed, human body will get destroyed. We will not even experience eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and the person will get frustrated. So we need to understand that human life is meant for something higher. So what are people running in society today for? What are the goals set by people? So So everyone in life, as we discussed at the start of the session, everyone is actually looking for happiness. So what kind of happiness we are looking for? Okay, so we'll just pause here. Do you all have any questions? Till here, is it clear? What we have discussed till here, is it clear? Was I audible? Do you all have any questions to ask? Okay. Should we go ahead, or you all want to ask certain questions? Okay, so let's go ahead. So all of you all are clear, that's good. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now, till now, I'll do a quick recap of what we discussed. So till now we saw 4 things common between humans and animals: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Then we saw the difference between humans and animals: ability for higher inquiry, we can access higher levels of bliss, we can make the right choices, and we can access determination. So then we saw, if humans don't use these 4 things and they just act like animals, then human beings will just remain sophisticated 2-legged animals, and human beings will deteriorate further, and we will miss this golden opportunity of this human form, and we will not experience happiness at all. So now we are going to the next section. What kind of happiness we are looking for? So we are all looking for permanent happiness, isn't it? We are looking for permanent happiness. Not only permanent, we want that happiness to keep increasing more and more. Not only that, we want to share that happiness with others, and it shouldn't decrease. And we want happiness that has lot of variety. Correct? We want different variety. We want food also of different variety. We want happiness also of different variety. So this is the happiness that we are looking for. Do we want this kind of happiness, permanent, ever increasing, shared with loved ones, and a lot of variety? Yes, this is what we are looking for. So now, when these characteristics are absent, such happiness is called relative happiness. So we are all looking for permanent happiness. But when there is no permanent happiness, that kind of happiness is called relative happiness. So we are introducing two terms here: permanent happiness and relative happiness. Uh, so Mr. Respected Vijay Chogle sir has joined in. Welcome, sir. Thank you for being with all of us. Hare Krishna. So, Hare Krishna. Thank you, sir. Uh, so we are all looking for permanent happiness, correct? So when these characteristics are not present, it's called relative happiness. So none of us go to God and tell God that I am happy today, make me miserable, give me miseries. We don't say that. What do we tell God? I'm happy today, make me more happy. The happiness that I have, double it, triple it. Because we want the happiness to keep increasing more and more. So when these characteristics are missing, it is called relative happiness. So what are the qualities of relative happiness? First, happiness that is dependent on something, some person or some situation. This happiness is called relative happiness. Like I say, I need this person in my life to be happy. Correct? That means it's relative happiness. When that person is not there in your life, you will be miserable. Or when I say, I need my mobile to be happy, that means what? You are dependent on your mobile. When that mobile is taken away from you, you'll be miserable. Or when you say, I need internet to be happy, that means your happiness is relative. When internet goes away, you'll be miserable. So all our happiness that we look in this world is all relative happiness. It's always dependent on something. And when that goes away, we are miserable. Or another definition of another quality of relative happiness is the gap between two problems. There are two problems, in between there are no problems, you call that happiness. Just like engineering students. I've done my engineering from Goa Engineering College. So you have semester exams, correct? So between one semester and the next semester, in between when there is no exam, that is the only period when engineering students are happy. So you ask an engineering student, how are you? When he says he's happy, what does it mean? It means that exam has not yet come, but exam will come very soon. Or just like you're driving on a road, na? There is one pothole and in between there is a good road and another pothole. So in between two potholes, when there are no potholes, you call it happiness. But such happiness is relative because very soon the next problem is going to come. It is not permanent happiness. And the third is relative happiness. It has a beginning and an end. Antavantu phalam tesham tad bhavati alpamedasham. So Krishna tells in the Gita, the relative happiness has a beginning and an end. Anything in this world, any happiness in this world has a beginning and has an end. It has to have an end. You take a gulab jamun and put it in your mouth, you are happy. But how long are you happy? As soon as that gulab jamun goes below your tongue, happiness goes away. You watch a movie, you are excited, you are happy. But how long you are happy? In 1.5 hours, the movie is over. Your happiness is also gone. So all the happiness that we have in this world is relative. You get a new mobile, you are happy. But how long you are happy? Just for some time, for a day, 2 days, and then the happiness disappears. So we are all looking for happiness. The problem is because we are looking for relative happiness, we are not permanently happy. So what we all need is permanent happiness. So we saw two things, two kinds of happiness: relative happiness and real happiness or permanent happiness. So how do we get relative happiness and how do you get relative happiness and how do you get real happiness? That's what we're going to see now. So what stops us from being happy? We all want to be happy in life, right? What stops us from being happy? There could be many answers to it, But a simple answer is problems, different problems. We have a certain plan to be happy, but suddenly some problems come in. How many of us ever thought something like COVID-19 is going to come and halt all our plans? Who thought? I mean, I never thought that I'll be doing a journey of self-discovery course on Zoom. We never heard of Zoom also before, right? We never knew such platforms are there and all these things are there. But now it has come suddenly. We had a plan to be happy, but suddenly there is a problem that has come. So what stops us from being happy? Problems. So now, just like there are two types of happiness, there are two types of problems: relative problem and real problem. So to achieve real relative happiness, we have to solve relative problems, and to achieve real happiness, we have to solve real problems. So we are all looking for real happiness, correct? We all discussed this, that we are looking for real and permanent happiness. So to get permanent real happiness, we need to solve real problems. So now the question is, what is real problems and what are relative problems? That is what we are going to discuss now. Why? Because by solving real problems, we will achieve real happiness. And by solving relative problems, we will achieve relative happiness. So now we are going to spend some time discussing what is relative problems and what are real problems. So people are generally doing two things. What are they? Yeah. So people are generally doing two things. One is we are trying to get happiness, achieve happiness, and then try to reduce our problems. These are two things that we are all trying to do. So what is a relative problem? Relative problem is, in simple language, one man's food is another man's poison. So this is a relative problem. One man's food is another man's poison. That means it is not common to all. Just like if there's a someone is having a toothache, is it the problem to him? Yes, it is a problem to him. But is your toothache a problem to a dentist? No, it is not a problem to a dentist. In fact, the dentist is happy if you have a toothache. Not happy exactly, but his business goes on. He gets his earning. So you may have a toothache. It's a problem for you, but for a dentist, your toothache is not a problem. In fact, because of your toothache, he earns. Correct. So this is called a relative problem. Or another example of a relative problem is that there may be a rich man who's staying in Bombay, in a very suburb, costly area of Bombay. And this rich man is always thinking, when will I go to that hill station and when will I settle there and have a small hut and peacefully stay there? That's what he's thinking. And what is the guy in the hill station thinking? The guy in the hill station is thinking, when will I be able to go to Bombay, Amchi, Mumbai? When will I go to this dreamland, the dream city, Bollywood city of Bombay? He's thinking like that. So both of them are thinking differently. Correct. The rich man is thinking in Bombay, when will I go to the hill station? And the hill station guy is thinking, when will I go to the city of Bombay? For this fellow in Bombay, Bombay is problem, hill station is the solution. For the guy in hill station is the problem, Bombay is the solution. Correct? So the problems in this world are all relative. Or umbrella shop and vegetable seller. So there is a guy who is having an umbrella shop. Outside the umbrella shop, there is a vegetable seller. On the road, footpath, is sitting and selling vegetables. So the umbrella guy owner is praying, oh God, let it rain. Because if it rains, his business goes on. And the vegetable guy outside, he's praying, oh God, let it not rain. Why? Because if it rains, his business can't continue. If it rains, the umbrella business guy continues. But if it rains, the vegetable guy's business stops. So this world is all relative problems. One man's food is another man's problem, right? So these are relative problems. But what are real problems? Real problems are problems that are common to all. No one wants it, but everybody gets it. Correct? What is the real problem? No one wants it, common to all. No one wants it, but everybody gets it. So why are we discussing relative problem, real problem? If you see the connection, because only when we know what is real problem and when we solve that real problem, we will get real happiness. When we solve relative problems, what we will get? Relative happiness. Just like you may say, I have to get education. Like every school student, college student feels that once my education is over, I will be happy. But once his education is over, he starts to work. And in work, there is another problem. So in work, someone feels after he starts to work, he feels that, oh, if I get married, I will be happy. But once you get married, there is another problem. And then you say, if I have children, I'll be happy. If children are there, there is another problem. So we keep solving one problem after another, thinking that we will reach happiness, but we don't reach happiness. Why? Because we are trying to solve relative problems and trying to expect permanent real happiness. So by solving relative problems, what we will get? Only relative happiness for short while. If we want permanent happiness, real happiness, we need to solve real problems. What are real problems? Three things common to all, no one wants it, everybody gets it. So what are the real problems that we go through in life? First, birth. So what are the real problems that we go through in life? First is birth. Second is old age. Third is disease. And the fourth is death. So these are the real problems of life: birth, old age, disease, and death. So the scriptures explain, the Gita explains, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. So these are the real problems that we need to find solution for. So let's spend some time in discussing why these are real problems. How is birth a problem? Someone might say, Arey, birth is great. When someone is born, you celebrate happy birthday and there's cake cutting and everything. How is birth a problem? Look at this child in the picture. This child is just born. This child is crying. Does any child come out smiling? No, every child comes out crying because birth is a problem. It's very painful. So when the mother has the child in the womb, what it is called? It is called labor pain. It is not called labor pleasure because the mother has to go through a lot of pain in bearing the child. And we were all in the womb of a mother. We may have forgotten it now, but we were all there. Correct? Someone just made a short clip of mine, short video of mine, Sharvani. So in that she put a small clip of image of a child in the womb of a mother. So I was just looking at that image and thinking, we were all in the womb of a mother. Imagine, packed up. For all of us now, being locked down in our house for two months is frustrating. You want to get out of your house. Imagine, we were all locked down in the womb of our mother for 9 months. Locked down. At least this lockdown is better. We at least can move within our house, some rooms. Imagine being locked down in the womb of your mother, in the womb of our mother, such a small place, completely locked down there for 9 months. And that too, the Bhagavatam explains that there are a lot of worms in the womb of the mother. And all those worms come and bite the child. And because the skin is not formed under the child, it pinches the child. And if the mother eats something very sour or something very spicy, it burns the skin of the child. And the child is suffering so much. When I will get down, when I will come out of this womb. Just like for all of us, we are just waiting when this COVID thing will get over and when we can move about freely like before. No one likes to be locked down and quarantined for a long time. So birth is a very painful process. So someone may say, "Arey, birth is over. Now at least I don't have any more birth, na? What is the problem?" So the next problem is there is old age that is going to come, correct? And we all have to go through that. Can't avoid it. And old age, there is a lot of suffering, a lot of physical suffering, a lot of mental suffering, uh, a lot of emotional suffering also, because when you are young, you have a lot of control in life. People listen to you, but when you grow old, people start to neglect you. When you are the center of the house, now you are no more the center, right? So it's very painful in that way. So whenever you see old people come together, they are always discussing which doctor is the best, what medicine is the best, which pati to go to, homeopathy, allopathy, ayurveda, right? So in this way, old age is a problem. So someone may say, old age is very far for me, I'm still young, but then there is disease that is always there. And now with this COVID thing, it's very clear that there are a lot of new diseases that are about to come. So there is COVID-19 is just one of the virus. So in China, they are saying there are many more viruses like this. So we don't know which next virus will come. And so many diseases around, AIDS, cancer, right? So many types of diseases going on, so many types of mental stress diseases. So this thing is always continuously there, some disease or the other. And then finally, death. The final blow. In English, if you have to say something that is sure to happen, you will say as sure as death. Can't avoid it. Yesterday, our honorable ex-president Pranab Mukherjee passed away. So whoever we are, death is unavoidable. You can't avoid death. You can't bribe death. You can't say that I have a lot of money, I will pay death. You can't argue with death. You can't say that I'm very beautiful and you'll allure death. No, you can't do anything. When that time comes, we have to leave and go. When that evacuation notice comes. So death is unavoidable. Jatasya dhruvam mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya cha. So Krishna tells in the Gita, those who are born are sure to die. So in this way, these are the 4 problems of life: birth, old age, disease, death. So Gita wisdom, the wisdom of the Vedic scriptures, tells us find a solution to these problems. Let us try to solve these problems. If we don't, then we will keep coming in the cycle of birth and death. Like Shankaracharya explains, Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janare jatare shainam. Iha samsare bahudushtare kripaya pahe pahe murare. So he says, Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Being born again and then dying again. And after death, what? Punarapi janare jatare shainam. Again entering into womb of another mother. Says, Iha samsare bahudushtare. So this material world is a very cruel place. So Shankaracharya prays, O Murari, Kripaya Pahe Pahe Murari. O Murari, please take me away from this cycle. So these are the real problems in life which we need to find a solution for. So till now we saw how are we special. We saw common things between humans and animals, differences. We saw relative problem, real problems. Then we saw how to achieve real happiness. How to achieve real happiness? By solving real problems: birth, old age, disease, death. So now we will see what is the real solution that we want. So before we go to the solution, so other than those 4 problems, birth, old age, disease, death, there are 3 more miseries also that is always there with us. What are they? It's called Adhyatmik Klesh, miseries of the body and mind. So you may say, I don't have any disease, my body is fit, but then some mental stress is always there. Some chinta is always there. It's called Adhyatmik Klesh, disease of the body and mind. Continuously, cases of depression always on the rise. And then Adi Bhautik Klesh. So you may say, my body is very fit, my mind is also very fit, but other living entities will not allow you to be peaceful. Correct? mosquito will come and bite you, coronavirus will come and affect you, or some neighbor will come and trouble you, some family dispute, some neighboring country will come and trouble you. So something or the other will be there, adi bhautik klesh. And then if nothing, adi devi klesh, natural disturbance, too much rain like in Goa this time, floods in many places in India, cyclones, tsunamis, too much heat, drought, all these things are there. At least in 2020 we have experienced so many problems that have come in life. So those who say that Gita is wisdom is only pessimistic, no, Gita wisdom is realistic. You actually see the world around, you will see that some problem or the other is always plaguing our life. If not this, this, if not this, something or the other is always there. So these are the 7 problems that are constantly there with us: birth, old age, disease, death, adhyatmic klesh, adhibhautik klesh, adhidevic klesh. So someone may say, let's not talk about problems. Why are we so pessimistic? It's not right. Let's not speak about death and everything else. Speak about something life. Speak about something that's very beautiful. So this is called ostrich philosophy. You know what is ostrich philosophy? Ostrich has a philosophy that whenever it sees danger, whenever it sees some tiger coming to attack it, it will dig a hole in the ground and put its head in the ground, and it feels safe. Why? Because it can't see danger. So many times we avoid discussing all these problems because we think that no, let's not discuss. Let's speak shubh shubh. Let us speak only good things. Let us not discuss problems in life. What are we trying to do? We are trying to bury our head and not face the reality. So this is called living in denial. We are trying to deny the problems around. So let us accept that there are problems in life. These are the real problems, but let us find solutions to them. Just like if you are detected cancer, if you have cancer, and the doctor tells, I will not tell you. It's not right, because if you are not told, how will you fight it? How will you find a solution to it? So similarly, the scriptures tell us what our problems are so that we can utilize our time to find the actual solution to these problems. So now we will come to the last section of today's topic. What is that? What is the solution to the real problems? So we saw that by solving real problems, we will achieve real happiness. So what is the solution to real problems? Birth, old age, disease, death. Is material advancement the real solution? Does material advancement have solution to these problems of birth, old age, disease, death? One time there was a patient who got a boil in his hand. So he went to a doctor, a skin specialist, and showed him that boil. The skin specialist gave him this ointment: boil ease, fast relief from pain of boils. So he told him, apply this boil ease, the boil will go away. So he applied the boil ease, the boil went away. But next week he got the boil in the next hand. He went to the doctor, the same doctor. The doctor told him, put boil ease, the boil will go away. He put boil ease, the boil went away. The third day he got the boil in the leg. He went to the doctor. The doctor told him, put boil ease, and the doctor told him, don't come again. Every time you have a boil, put boil ease, finish, problem solved. So this guy was thinking that every time I have a boil, I put this, but it's not the permanent solution because the boil comes in some other place. So he said, let me change my doctor. So he went to an Ayurvedic doctor, and the Ayurvedic doctor did some blood test and found out that there is some vitamin deficiency in his blood, some impurities in the blood. And he told him, drink Safi, blood purifier. And he purified his blood and no more boils. Why? Because he found a permanent solution, not a superficial solution. So material advancement only gives us temporary relief like boil ease, and it is not real solution, only patch up solution. It's not a permanent solution. Just like now, boys who stay in hostels. So their rooms are generally very dirty. But when the warden comes to check the rooms, what do the boys do? They take all the clothes and all the things there, put it in the cupboard and close the cupboard. So everything looks first class from the external, but all the dust is in the cupboard. If you open the cupboard, everything will fall down. So similarly, today's world is all patch up solution. You cover up. It's not a real solution, it's just a cover up that's going on. Correct? So material advancement is only this. It's a patch up solution. Like if your hair become white due to old age, hair becoming white means sign of old age. What is the solution material advancement has? Hair dye, Godrej hair dye. You put hair dye, forget your problem. If your teeth fall off due to old age, the solution they have is dentures, artificial teeth. Correct? If you get wrinkles, you have facelift that comes. So you have all these different solutions that come. So it's all patch up solution, not the actual solution. They don't come to the actual solution because material advancement doesn't have an actual solution. They can do only patch up. And the irony is that the solutions that material advancement offers gives rise to more problems worse than the original one. Just like now, this COVID situation, right? So there are so many people who are objecting for putting the mask, for taking that vaccine of corona, even if it comes up, because we don't know what other problems it can cause. So to get rid of one problem, we are creating many more problems that come. So this is material advancement. One solution gives rise to another problem. To give you a few examples, information technology, like now, IT era, and especially with this COVID-19 era, it's like information technology, everything's based on the net. So there is global connectivity, huge information, easy interaction. But the flip side of it is pornography, health problems, impersonalism. So these are the flip side of information technology. So it does offer a solution, but it's not the permanent solution. There is a flip side to it. These are jokes, IT jokes. So this is father and mother. Dear Andy, how have you been? Your mother and I are fine. We are missing you. Please sign off your computer and come downstairs for something to eat. Love, Dad. So to call the children downstairs also, you have to send an SMS. This is IT family. This is IT school. So the child is telling the teacher to see my homework, go to my home page. This is IT gym. Welcome to the weight loss forum. To lose 1 pound, double click your mouse 6 million times. So this is the irony of today's society, that 24 hours we are sitting in front of the computer, and then obesity and so many problems. To lose all that, you have to go to gym. Previously, because everyone was doing some physical work, there was no need of going to gym. But now, because we are used to sedentary lifestyle, sitting in office, sitting in front of the PC, then you have to go and pay the gym so much money. So these are all the flip sides of the material problems, the material solutions that technology is offering us. Like invention of mobiles, always accessible, easy to connect, speed work, but there's no privacy, heart diseases, stress. These are nuclear weapons, inventions. So nuclear weapons has given rise to a lot of power, but then there's a flip side to it also. If one country, China, shoots one missile, an entire city can be bombarded together. So it's very risky also in that sense. Or medicines. You have a medicine that cures a disease, but then there are side reactions to it. You really don't know what is going to be the side reaction of a medicine. So that's how material society is, material technology is, and advancement is. It gives you a solution, but that solution has another problem. Just like, to solve the problem of communication, we created vehicles. But then vehicles has given rise to a new problem called pollution. So which is a bigger problem? Travel or commuting, transportation or pollution? Pollution is a bigger problem. So we have come to a situation where we are creating more and more bigger problems. So the question is material advancement the real solution for our problems, for our real problems? No, it just gives temporary relief and no real solution. Have we missed the key for happiness somewhere? So one time there were 4 farmers from India who won a lottery, and all of them got to stay in America for 10 days in a 5-star hotel on the 100th floor. So they all decided that every day they would go out to check different parts of America, and in the evening they would all come back and they would share their experiences. So one evening they all came back, but the lift was not working in the hotel, and they all were staying in the 100th floor. So they all decided, let's walk on top. So while they were walking, they decided that let's share our experience so that the burden of walking, we will not feel it so much. So as they were walking on top, the first guy decided to speak that America is a great country. This is what I saw. I think we should come and shift down here. We should stay here. The second guy started to speak that this is what I saw in America. Thrilled. India is nothing compared to this. And the third guy started to speak his experience. And like this, they were walking on top and they reached the 99th floor. And they all turned to the fourth guy and said, "Arey, why you are not speaking? You also tell us your experience, what you saw." That guy said, "Before I tell you my experience, there is one problem." What is the problem? I forgot the key in the ground floor. They have reached the 99th floor, walking on top. But then he says, "I have forgotten the key in the ground floor." So this is today's society. We have traveled very far in terms of technology, in terms of advancement. We have the best communication, we have the best transportation, we have the best technology, everything the best. We have climbed on top. We are on the 99th floor in terms of material advancement. But no one is happy. Everyone feels they have missed the key to happiness somewhere long ago. We have come very fast, but we don't know where we are going. Just like if you're driving very fast, full speed, and you don't know where you're going, the more faster you go, the further you're going away from your destination. So we are all driving very fast, breakneck speed, but we don't know where we are going. We have missed the key to happiness. So this is a very interesting poem. It's a poem that I really like. I'll read this poem. The paradox of a time in history is that we have taller buildings but shorter viewpoints. We have wider freeways but narrower viewpoints. We spend more but have less. We buy more but enjoy it less. We have bigger houses and smaller families. Please pay attention to each line of this. We have more conveniences but less time. We have more degrees but less sense. More knowledge but less judgment. We have more experts but less solutions. More medicine but less wellness. And what better situation than this COVID-19 situation? So much medicine, so much advancement, but then there is no wellness. We have multiplied our possession but reduced our values. We talk too much, love too seldom, and hate too often. We have learned how to make a living but not a life. We have added life to we have added years to life and not life to years. We have been all the way to the moon and back, but have trouble crossing the street to meet the new neighbor. These are times of tall men and short character, steep profits and shallow relationships. These are times of world peace but domestic warfare, more leisure but less fun, more kinds of food but less nutrition. These are days of two income but more divorce. It is a time when there is much in the show window but nothing in the stock room. Life, it makes you think. So in today's time, there is lot in the show window. First class, everything looks externally, you know, but inside everything is hollow. Nothing in the stock room. Life, it makes you think. So the Journey of Self-Discovery course is a course where we take 6 evenings to pause and think whether our life is going in the right direction or we want to change the course of our direction. So this is the Journey of Self-Discovery course. Life itself is a journey. We are all moving on a certain path, but it's important to know in the journey of life whether our goal is correct or not. If the goal is not correct, we should be able to shift and make the goal correct. So we are in the last section of today's theme, today's topic. What is the permanent solution? So till now we saw that material advancement is not the permanent solution. So what is the permanent solution? We are all searching for the right thing in the wrong place. Just like one time there was a guy who lost his ring, a golden ring, and he was searching for this golden ring. It was dark in the night. He was frantically searching for this golden ring on the road, on the footpath. So one passerby went and he saw this guy searching. Half an hour later he came back and the guy is still searching. So this passerby asked this fellow, "What are you searching for?" He said, "I'm searching for a golden ring that I lost." So this fellow asked him, "Where did you lose it?" He said, "I lost it there." He said, "If you lost it there, why you're searching it here?" He's saying, "Because light is here, I'm searching here." However long he searches, he's not going to find the ring because he lost the ring somewhere else. He's searching it in a wrong place. He's searching the right thing in the wrong place. Similarly, we are all looking for happiness, right? Because that's a birthright. But we are looking out for it in the wrong place. Just like if you're looking for water in a desert, how much water you're going to find in a desert, right? If you want to find water, you have to go to the sea. You have to go to a place where there is water, not in a desert. So similarly, this material world is like a desert. There's hardly any trace of happiness in this world. Like, you know, this is the place of eating, correct? A restaurant. In Sanskrit, a restaurant is called, or in Hindi, a restaurant is called Bhojanalay. This is a bar, very famous in Goa. So what is a bar called? Bar is called Madiralay. What is this? This is a school or a college. So what is a college called? A college is called Vidyalay, place of studying. So what is this? This is a library. What is a library called? Granthalay. Similarly, okay, so if if you go to a library, a Granthalay, and you tell them, "I want food," they will tell you Granthalay is not the place. Granthalay, you will get books. For food, you go to Bhojanalay. If you go to Bhojanalay and you tell them, "I want education," they will tell you, "Go to Vidyalay." If you go to Vidyalay and you tell them, "Give me Kingfisher," they will tell you, "Crazy guy, you go to Madiralay, you will get Kingfisher there." Correct? So if you go to a Bhojanalay, you can expect food there. If you go to a Madiralay, you can expect liquor there. If you go to a Granthalay, you can expect books there. Similarly, what does alay means? A place where it is filled. Like Himalaya. What does Himalaya mean? Himalaya means a place that is filled with snow. Him means snow. Similarly, in Gita, Krishna calls this world Dukkhalay. What is this world called? This world is called Dukkhalay and Ashashvatam. Ashashvatam means temporary. Dukkhalay means a place of misery. So in this world, some problem or the other will always be there. COVID-19 or something or the other will always keep going on, because this world is designed. Why it is designed, we will see in the next session. But this world is designed where there is filled with miseries. So if we seek our pleasures in this world, we will be miserable. We will not experience happiness, because this world can only offer us relative happiness. It can't offer us real happiness. Real happiness can be experienced only on the spiritual level, not on the material level. Whatever things you may have materially can only give you happiness for some time. That is why it is called ashashvatam. It has to have a beginning, it will also have an end. So this is the last slide for this session. One time there was a small child who went along with her father to a mela, just like you have Kumbh Mela. You know, once in 12 years, I think there's Kumbh Mela in Allahabad. So in Kumbh Mela, there are like crores of people who come, literally crores of people. So this child got lost in that Kumbh Mela. And this child's father was a billionaire. A billionaire. So the child was lost in the Kumbh Mela. If you are lost in the Kumbh Mela, you can't find anyone there. Crores of people, what can you find? So the child was lost completely, was going everywhere here and there. So some guy saw the child, became very compassionate on the child and gave the child some food, took it to a restaurant, gave him some food. Some guy gave the child some medicine. Some fellow gave the child some new clothes. But if you want to make the child truly happy, you're talking about search for happiness. If you want to make the child truly happy, what is the solution? Yes, if you give the child food, it will be happy for some time. If you give the child medicine or clothing, it will be happy for some time. But if you want to make the child permanently happy, real happiness, what you have to do? Connect the child back to its father. Why? Because the father is a billionaire. So the father can give food for the child unlimitedly, medicine, clothing, everything. So if you connect the child back to the father, the child will permanently be happy. So that is the solution for all of us. We are all like this lost child. We are lost in this world. This world is like a Kumbh Mela. This world is like a huge Mela where we are lost. We have forgotten our connection with our Supreme Father, God, our Supreme Father, and we are loitering around in this world and we are miserable. So the scriptures, the Gita, the Bhagavad, the Vedic scriptures explained that the solution to permanent happiness is yoga. Yoga means to join. When we establish our connection back with our Supreme Father, God, we will be permanently happy. That is the only solution to permanent happiness. Now the question is, you are speaking about establishing connection back with God. The question is there God? Does God really exist? That is the discussion for tomorrow's session. So thank you very much. I'll end my discussion today. So if you all have any questions at this point, we can take question answers.